Hi guys, thanks for joining me. This is Janet Perez with the Painted Saguaro, and today I am going to show you how to paint, or should I say repaint, a textured piece of furniture. Today I'm using I Love Hue paints in Belizean blue, blue by hue, which is that really great cobalty blue, and urban blue, which is a nice kind of almost a navy blue, a little bit more teal, but and I'm using chippy brushes. I've got one for each color, and I'm also using a spray bottle. So this piece was painted about a year and a half ago, I'm going to say, and I never listed it for sale. I never liked it. I sat there and looked at it forever and decided it needed to be redone. And finally I found some time to get her done. So I'm starting off with the Belizean blue, and when you're doing a ombre type of paint, you want to either start with the lightest or the darkest. And I like to start with the lightest color on top, mainly because I imagine it being sun faded. And so I want it to fade from the top down. So I'm using the Belizean blue on top, and then I'm using the urban blue in the center portion of it. And then when I get down to the bottom, I'm going to use the urban blue. And I'm just brushing it just to get the paint on. I'm using a little bit of blending technique here, just because it needs to be blended slightly. And when you're blending, you just want to work the paint, pull it into each other until you get the look and feel that you want. So as you can see, this piece had a lot of texture on it. And I'm painting right over that because I've since learned how to use texture much better than when I painted this piece the first time. And I'll show you what I'm going to do to enhance that texture. So again, this is the this is the blue by hue color, that pretty cobalty blue. And again, I'm just working on blending. You can see I just kind of stroke back and forth, up and down, until I get the blend that I'm looking for. If you start feeling your paintbrush drag, you definitely want to spritz it with a little bit of water because you don't want that paint to drag on your brush. So now I'm dipping into that urban blue, which is that really pretty sort of navy blue. It's almost like a dark gray blue. I don't really know how to describe it. It's kind of greenish hues to it, and it's got a little bit of a grayish tone to it. And I'm pulling that in from the bottom. And now I'm going to start working on blending it upwards into that blue by hue color. And I just keep pulling both of the brushes into the paint and blending it. And you can see I'll get a really nice gradient blend here eventually. But you want to take a step back occasionally and kind of take a look at what you're doing, because sometimes when you're up close, you don't have the objective that you need. So obviously I'm happy with the blend, and now I'm using a very stiff putty knife, and I am chipping away all of that gunky texture that I left on there because I want it to look weathered and worn. So I'm scraping it, and of course, because this has sat for as long as it has, it's a little bit tough to get that stuff scraped off of there, but it's coming off, and I'm just going to keep working it until I get all of that texture removed. Once I get the texture down to where I want it, then I'm going to use a little bit of sanding paper and sand it a bit to get the big nubbies out. So now what I'm doing, and you can't see it yet, but let me get you moved up a little higher hopefully here in a second. I'm using a pigment powder, and this one is oxide red. And what I do is I dip my brush in a little tiny bit of water, and then I dip it right into the jar of the oxide pigment. And you want to kind of layer this to get the effect that you want, because it kind of builds up as it dries over time. That technique right there I'm using is called frottage, and it just basically means that you are blotting with a flat sheet of paper to get texture and to get the drips removed. So now this color of pigment powder is the dark brown pigment that I have, and I love this. This one creates a really great look and effect. But again, I'm going to have to use quite a bit of it and do several layers to get it where I want it to be, because at first it just kind of washes away until you build up those layers. And if you're interested in obtaining any of these pigment powders, I do sell them. I don't have my website up right at the moment, so if you don't see my website up, you can message me and I would be more than happy to give you information. And if you want to order some, I can get some shipped out to you. It's $15.99 a jar, and it's a 2-ounce jar. But they work really great for adding shadows, adding distressing. I like it better than wax because I think that it's a lot more manageable. If you get too much on, you can wash it away. Where with wax, sometimes even if you do the clear wax first, sometimes you can't get it away and it just looks dirty. Now this is Golden Alchemy. It's another I Love Hue color, and I'm going to start incorporating this into the piece now. Getting some of those drips wiped away, but not all of them. So now we've got that Golden Alchemy color, and I'm just going to dab it on up here underneath that little ledge because I want it to look like it's naturally oxidized. I'm blending it, I'm spritzing it, and dragging it down a bit. Again, using that frottage technique. And you can see that it's dripping down the whole side of my piece, but I can fix that, number one. And number two, I like some of the drips. I just don't like the runny drips, but I do like the way it naturally cascades down the side. And I'm sorry I didn't move my camera. This is a really tall, skinny piece, so it's difficult to get it filmed. But again, I added some of that Golden Alchemy down here on the bottom part. And I'm doing the same thing that I just did at the second level. This piece is a really beautiful, it's an armoire hutch with a secretary. And it's a really, really cool old piece. So I'm happy that I'm getting it redone and going to be able to put it in my shop here soon. So now I took some of the Pink Magnolia by I Love Hue. This is called Vintage Lace. And what I'm doing is I am working it on the bottom to make it look aged down there. And again, I'm sorry you can't see it. I will move it down in just a second so you can see, because I'll realize that, hey, Janet, you're not on camera. But I'm just working it down from the bottom up, sort of like I did at that second level, curving it up so that it looks like it's dripped naturally, and then rinsing it away to get the natural drip and the natural flow of it. So obviously I never did show you the white at the bottom, but I will show that to you eventually. But basically I worked the same thing that I did. So what I'm doing here is I'm pointing to the areas that I want to use this spreader, and I don't even know what kind of a spreader it is. I think it's for drywall. It's got a soft pad on it, and it's made by 3M. And I'm applying the Daydream Apothecary paints onto it. This is a really pretty purple color from Daydream Apothecary. And you just paint it on there and then spread it on the piece to give it that sort of chippy appearance. And because this piece has texture, it even appears more chippy. So just apply the paint as you need to. It's really a cool technique to spread some paint on there really quick and easy. And now I'm going to their, I think it's called Girl Gang Pink color by Daydream Apothecary. And I dig this pink. It's a great pink. So what I'm doing is, and I don't even really need to wait for this first layer to dry. So what I'm doing now is I cleaned that pad off, and now I'm spreading some of this bright pink on there. Because I decided I wanted this to have sort of a pop art look to it. So you can see how that just, wow, it brings so much drama to this piece of furniture. Now, trust me and trust the process, because it's not going to look like this when it's done. But I just absolutely love this paint. And I'm not a big neon girl, but this paint is really nice, and it's got great coverage. Again, I'm spreading it onto that spreader thing. And again, I'm not a construction worker, so I really don't know what this is called, but it's just, I got it at Home Depot. I think, I bought it probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I probably paid $12 for it, I think. So now there's all the pink and the purple on there, and the purple kind of got covered up by the pink, which is perfect because I wanted it to sort of create a shadow effect for that pink. Now I'm going back to that Belizean blue by I Love Hue, and I'm spreading over the whole thing again because I want that pink to be a back color and not to be the primary color. So I'm doing the exact same technique as I did with the neon colors, using that Belizean blue and spreading it all over. And now I'm using Clay Pot by I Love Hue, and I'm spreading that all over. Of course, between these two layers, I did allow it to dry before I moved on to the Clay Pot color because I didn't want to smear that turquoisey blue. Now I'm taking some vinegar water, and this is white vinegar and water mixed 50-50, and I'm spraying the whole darn thing. And this is with the Clay Pot color still wet. And I'm kind of smearing it, and then I'm going to do that frottage technique that I told you about earlier again, because it's going to lift off the wet part and leave the part on where the spreader was. But it's just going to kind of make it so that it does sort of a wash over the whole thing. And I love the effect that I'm getting with this technique. See how it just lifts the paint right off? Clay Pots is probably one of my favorite colors by I Love Hue. I love the kind of terracotta clay feel that you get with it. Again, working off camera because, you get into the zone and you forget to move the camera when you're working. But I'm doing the exact same thing up on top as I did in the middle layer and in the bottom layer, and just wiping the drips because I don't want those drips to get on that blue shelf. Going back in and cleaning up some more drips. And I'm going to spray it again because it was a little too intense. Sorry, I was talking to my dog there. My little Baumeister. I don't know how many of you have a rescue dog, but my rescue dog is just the most devoted, loyal, loving little creature on the face of the planet. Anyway, so continue doing this for another couple of minutes, and then I take that Golden Alchemy again, and I'm going to kind of do the same thing I did before with the shadowing and the using the pigment powders and the gold color to kind of create some drippy effect here. I love patina. I love creating aged look, and this Golden Alchemy is just a great color for creating that. So I'm just doing that frottage again and wiping it back because I just want kind of a hint of that yellow color. I don't want it to be too pronounced. I want it to be subtle. And this is, you guys, this is what creates furniture art. And this is what makes the difference between furniture art and furniture flipping. You're creating a work of art on a piece of furniture. And I love doing it. It is so therapeutic. Leave me a comment in the comment section below on how long you've been painting furniture, or if you haven't started yet, and what brought you here to watch this video, because I'd love to hear your story. So you can see how that yellow color just kind of adds another pop of interest to this piece. Doing it again in the center section. Oh, Janet, you remembered to move the camera. Good girl. So I'm back with the dark brown pigment powder. Again, I love this stuff. It is so intense, and you really just need the most minuscule amount, and it goes a long way. That's one tiny little dip from my paintbrush that was wet into the container of pigment powder, and it just creates the coolest effects. If you like aged, rustic, rusty, crusty, grungy, then you got to get yourself some of this pigment powder. I love it. Now I'm spritzing it with some vinegar water. And the thing that vinegar water does is it breaks down the paint a little bit better, and it creates just a little bit of a different drip than if you just use plain water. I can't really explain it. You kind of have to see it to understand. So I suggest that you try it and just see if you like it or not. So again, I'm just working that pigment powder into the piece. I am spritzing it. I am brushing it. I am getting the effect that I want, wiping it back as needed. And this is kind of a tedious process. And it seems wasteful, but honestly to goodness, it's not. It really is. I've been using that same jar of pigment powder, oh gosh, for probably 6 months. And it may be down 1/8 of an inch from where it was when I first filled it. So again, you just got to keep working it until you get it to where you want it. And the more you layer it, the more intense it will become. It builds up. Looks like my son's beard. If you have any questions, you guys drop them in the comments below. I am an open book. I've been doing this a long time. Just to give you a little insight while you watch this, I started painting furniture when my kids were in their preteens, and they're both well into adulthood by now. They're older than I was when I started painting furniture. So I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing it professionally for the last 8 years. But before that, I did it back before chalk paint, before any of the products, before transfers. I mean, heck, we used to use ashes from the fireplace to simulate dust and age in a piece. We used to take chains and hit your table with them to create natural looking distress. Only had latex paint, so that was all we used. So there wasn't really any blending per se, but I remember when Ross Dress for Less first opened, I went into it and bought a whole bunch of plates and tiles that they had in there, like trivets and whatnot, because I found at a yard sale, I found a really cute French provincial dresser that I wanted to redo for my daughter, and took all of those plates and busted them up and created a mosaic tile top on that dresser, and it turned out really cute. I did it in sort of a Wedgwood blue and white, and that was probably my first artistic piece, I should say. And my daughter was 14 at the time, and now she's 38. So it was a long time ago, 24 years ago. So I'm going to fast forward this. I know it's already fast forward, but I'm going to actually edit this so that you don't have to watch all of this process. And I'm actually going to wrap this up, and I'll show you a picture of the completed piece at the end of this video. But that's basically it, you guys. I sealed this with a polyacrylic top coat, and I was done. So thank you for joining me. Again, this is Janet Perez with the Painted Saguaro. Here's the finished piece. I love this pop art feel that this piece has with those neon colors that are peeking out underneath those traditional rich blues from I Love Hue Paint. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again.